The paradox of surrender. Why your desperation is destroying your dreams. You're scrolling again, checking your phone, refreshing your email, looking for signs, synchronicities, anything that tells you it's working, that the universe heard you, that your manifestation is finally on its way. But deep down, beneath all the positive affirmations and vision boards, there's a knot in your stomach, a whisper that keeps asking, what if I'm deluding myself? What if none of this is real? Here's what no one in the manifestation community wants to admit. Your desperation is the very thing blocking what you want most. Every time you check for results, you're telling the universe, I don't have it. Every moment spent anxiously waiting is energy spent in lack, not abundance. Every desperate prayer, every frantic visualization session, every universe, please give me a sign, is actually pushing away what you're trying to attract. Carl Jung understood something that modern self-help culture has forgotten. He said, "What you resist persists." But there's a deeper truth hidden in his work. What you desperately seek actively avoids you. You've been taught that wanting something badly enough will make it happen. That if you just believe hard enough, visualize clearly enough, take enough action, the universe will deliver. But this is the cruelest lie ever sold to the human spirit. Because desperation isn't faith. It's fear wearing a mask. When you desperately want love, what you're really saying is, I'm terrified of being alone forever. When you frantically manifest money, you're screaming, I'm scared I'll never be safe. When you obsess over success, you're confessing, I don't believe I'm enough as I am. And the universe, which operates on energy rather than words, hears every tremor of fear beneath your affirmations. It feels the anxiety pulsing through your vision boards. It senses the desperation disguised as gratitude in your journals. This is why people spend years manifesting the same things over and over. Why the same desires keep showing up in their journals year after year. Why they can recite every law of attraction principle by heart, but still live lives of quiet disappointment. They're manifesting from wound, not wholeness, from fear, not faith, from a place of I need this to be okay, rather than I'm already complete. But what if I told you there's another way? What if the very thing you think is giving up, surrender, is actually the most powerful manifestation tool that exists? What if stopping the chase is the only way to finally catch what you've been running toward? This isn't about becoming passive or giving up on your dreams. This is about understanding the fundamental paradox that governs all of creation. The moment you stop needing something, you become magnetic to it. The second you release your death grip on an outcome, you create space for it to flow into your life. Today, we're going to explore the psychology of surrender, the neuroscience of letting go, and why your desperation, no matter how spiritually dressed up it appears, is the invisible barrier between you and everything you want. Because the truth is, you're not manifesting, you're begging, and beggars can't be choosers. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Control. We need to start with a hard truth. Control is an illusion. Every moment you spend trying to force an outcome, you're actually pushing it further away. Think about the last time you desperately wanted something. Maybe it was a text back from someone who hurt you. Maybe it was a job offer that would change everything. Maybe it was just one sign, that everything was going to be okay. What did that desperation feel like in your body? The tight chest, the racing thoughts, the constant checking and rechecking, the inability to focus on anything else. That physical response, that anxiety, that contraction, that desperate clinging, that's your nervous system in survival mode. And survival mode is the opposite of creation mode. When you're in survival mode, your brain is focused on one thing: eliminating the perceived threat. In this case, the threat is not having what you want. So your entire system becomes oriented around getting it, controlling it, making it happen. But here's what neuroscience has taught us. A brain in survival mode cannot access its highest creative functions. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for imagination, possibility, and creative problem-solving, literally goes offline when the amygdala is activated by fear. This means that the more desperately you want something, the less capable you become of actually creating it. Carl Jung understood this decades before brain scans could prove it. He recognized that the psyche has its own wisdom, its own timing, its own way of bringing things into being. But this natural process gets interrupted when the ego tries to control it. The ego is terrified of uncertainty. It wants guarantees, timelines, evidence. It wants to know how things will happen and when. But life doesn't operate according to ego demands. Life operates according to natural laws that are far more complex and mysterious than our controlling minds can comprehend. When you try to force a manifestation, you're essentially telling the universe, "I don't trust you. I don't believe you know what's best. I need to micromanage this process." And the universe, which responds to energy rather than words, feels that mistrust and reflects it back to you. This is why people who are desperately seeking love often end up in relationships with emotionally unavailable partners. Their desperation attracts people who will maintain their familiar state of longing and uncertainty. This is why people frantically trying to manifest money often find themselves in cycles of financial stress. Their anxiety about money creates more situations that justify that anxiety. The universe isn't punishing them. It's simply responding to their dominant emotional frequency, which is fear disguised as desire. But what would happen if instead of trying to control the outcome, you learned to trust the process? What if instead of gripping tighter, you learned to hold things lightly? What if instead of forcing the river, you learn to flow with it? This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on what you want. It means recognizing that there's a difference between aligned action and desperate action, between faith-based effort and fear-based forcing. Aligned action feels easeful even when it's challenging. It comes from inspiration rather than desperation. It's motivated by love rather than fear. Desperate action feels frantic. It comes from a place of, if I don't do this, I'll never get what I want. It's motivated by scarcity rather than abundance. The quality of your action matters more than the quantity. One inspired step forward is worth more than 100 desperate ones. But before you can take aligned action, you must first address the deeper issue. Why do you need this thing so badly? What wound are you trying to heal? What fear are you trying to eliminate? Because until you address the root cause of your desperation, you'll continue to manifest from wound rather than wholeness. And wounded manifestation always creates more problems than it solves. Chapter 2. The wound beneath the want. Every desperate desire is a messenger. It's not just telling you what you want, it's revealing what you believe you lack. When you desperately want love, dig deeper. Is it really about love? Or is it about the terror of being unlovable? Is it about connection? Or is it about the fear of abandonment that's been following you since childhood? When you frantically try to manifest money, look beneath the surface. Is it really about financial security? Or is it about the shame you feel around not being successful enough? Is it about freedom? Or is it about proving your worth to people who made you feel small? Carl Jung spent his life studying these deeper motivations. He understood that what we call desires are often just the conscious mind's attempt to heal unconscious wounds. The problem is, when you're trying to manifest from a wound, you're asking the external world to fix something that can only be healed internally. You're trying to use achievement, acquisition, or validation to solve what is essentially an emotional and spiritual problem. This is why getting what you want often doesn't feel as good as you thought it would. The relationship you desperately manifested doesn't eliminate your fear of abandonment. It often triggers it more intensely. The money you frantically attracted doesn't cure your sense of unworthiness. It often amplifies your fear of losing it. Because the wound is still there, underneath the manifestation. Real transformation doesn't happen through getting more. It happens through becoming whole. It happens through healing the wound that's driving the desperate seeking in the first place. This is where most manifestation teachings fall short. They focus on the external goal without addressing the internal landscape. They teach techniques for attracting without exploring why you're so desperate to attract in the first place. But Jung's approach was different. He wasn't interested in helping people get more stuff. He was interested in helping them become more integrated, more whole, more authentically themselves. He called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you really are beneath all the masks and compensations and desperate attempts to be what you think you should be. Individuation requires facing your shadow, the parts of yourself you've rejected, denied, or tried to fix. It requires acknowledging the wounds that have been driving your behavior without being consumed by them. This is uncomfortable work. It's much easier to focus on vision boards and affirmations than it is to sit with the grief of not feeling loved enough as a child. It's much more pleasant to script your dream life than it is to face the shame you carry around not being successful according to other people's standards. But this internal work is what actually creates lasting change. When you heal the wound that's driving the desperate seeking, you naturally become magnetic to what you actually need, not what you think you need. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to heal your abandonment wound through finding the perfect relationship, you become the kind of person who naturally attracts healthy love. When you stop trying to prove your worth through external achievement, you develop genuine confidence that makes success feel natural. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And if what you are is desperate, wounded, and grasping, that's what you'll continue to create in your life. But if what you are is whole, grounded, and trusting, you'll find that life begins to flow in ways that feel almost magical. The question is, Are you ready to do the deeper work? Are you willing to face the wound beneath the want? Are you prepared to heal from the inside out rather than trying to fix yourself from the outside in? Because that's where real transformation begins. Not in getting more, but in needing less. Not in acquiring external validation, but in developing internal wholeness. Chapter 3. The nervous system's role in creation. Your nervous system is your manifestation tool, not your mind, not your visualizations, not your affirmations, your actual physical nervous system. This is something that most spiritual teachers don't understand because they're focused on the mental aspects of manifestation rather than the physiological ones. But modern neuroscience has revealed something profound. Your nervous system determines your reality. When your nervous system is in a state of safety and regulation, you naturally access states of creativity, flow, and receptivity. You become open to possibility. You notice opportunities that were always there, but were invisible to you when you were in survival mode. But when your nervous system is dysregulated, when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, your perception literally narrows. You can only see threats and problems. You miss the very opportunities you're desperately seeking because your system is oriented toward survival, not creation. Think about the last time you were really anxious about something you wanted. Maybe you were waiting for an important phone call or email. What did that state feel like in your body? The tight chest, the shallow breathing, the inability to relax or focus on anything else. That's your nervous system in threat detection mode. And in that state, you're literally incapable of recognizing opportunities, feeling grateful, or taking inspired action. You're stuck in a loop of anxious seeking that pushes away what you're trying to attract. This is why desperate people often miss obvious signs and opportunities. Their nervous systems are so focused on the lack of what they want that they can't perceive the abundance that's already present. But when your nervous system is regulated, when you feel safe, grounded, and present, everything changes. You notice things you missed before. You feel inspired to take actions that seemed impossible when you were anxious. You naturally align with opportunities that support your growth and desires. Polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, explains this beautifully. When your vagus nerve is in a state of social engagement, when you feel safe and connected, you access your highest cognitive and creative functions. You become naturally magnetic and attractive to others. You radiate a quality that draws people and opportunities toward you. But when your vagus nerve is activated by stress or trauma, you literally become less attractive, not just romantically, but in every area of life. People can sense your desperation, your anxiety, your grasping energy, and it unconsciously repels them. This is why the most desperate people often struggle the most to attract what they want. Their nervous system state is broadcasting the opposite of what they're trying to create. So how do you regulate your nervous system? How do you shift from desperate seeking to magnetic being? It starts with recognizing that your nervous system has been shaped by your past experiences. If you experienced early trauma, neglect, or emotional unavailability, your system likely learned to be hypervigilant, always scanning for threats and problems. This hypervigilance served you well as a child. It helped you survive difficult circumstances. But as an adult, it becomes a barrier to creating the life you want because it keeps you in a constant state of perceived danger. Healing your nervous system isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. It's about literally rewiring your system's default responses through practices that create safety and regulation. This might include breathwork, meditation, therapy, body-based healing modalities, time in nature, or simply learning to pause and breathe when you feel the familiar contraction of desperation arising. The key is consistency. Your nervous system changes through repeated experiences of safety, not one-time interventions. Every time you choose to breathe deeply instead of anxiously checking your phone, you're literally rewiring your system. Every time you practice presence instead of future tripping about your manifestations, you're creating new neural pathways. Over time, as your nervous system learns to feel safe with uncertainty, you'll find that life begins to flow more easily. Opportunities appear with less effort. Relationships develop more naturally. Money flows more smoothly. Not because you're using some magical manifestation technique, but because you've created the internal conditions that allow life to support you rather than forcing life to comply with your demands. Your nervous system is your manifestation tool. Treat it with the respect and care it deserves, and watch how your external reality begins to shift. Chapter 4. The Art of Sacred Waiting. There's a space between asking and receiving that most people can't tolerate. It's the space of not knowing, of uncertainty, of having planted seeds without yet seeing shoots. This space is sacred. It's where transformation actually happens, but it's also where most people give up, start forcing, or fall back into desperate seeking. Carl Jung called this the transcendent function, the psychological process that bridges the conscious and unconscious minds. But this process requires time, patience, and trust. It cannot be rushed or forced. Think of it like pregnancy. Once conception occurs, there's a natural gestation period that cannot be shortened. You can eat well, rest, and take care of yourself, but you cannot make the baby arrive faster through sheer force of will. The same is true with manifestations. Once you've planted a seed, once you've gotten clear on what you want and taken the necessary internal and external steps, there's a gestation period where things are forming beneath the surface, invisible to your conscious awareness. This is the most difficult time for most people, because there's no external evidence that anything is happening. The old situation hasn't changed yet, but the new one hasn't arrived either. You're in the liminal space, the threshold between one reality and another. Ancient cultures understood the power of liminal spaces. They created rituals and ceremonies to help people navigate these transitions with grace and wisdom. They knew that trying to rush through the in-between would only create more suffering. But our modern culture has no patience for natural timing. We want instant results, immediate gratification, constant evidence that we're making progress. We've lost the art of sacred waiting. Sacred waiting isn't passive. It's not sitting around hoping something will happen. It's an active state of trust, presence, and inner preparation. It's using the time between asking and receiving to become the kind of person who can handle what you've asked for. During this time, you're not trying to make things happen. You're becoming the person who naturally attracts what you want. You're healing old wounds that would sabotage your manifestation. You're developing the skills, wisdom, and capacity to receive and maintain what you've requested. This is why people who try to rush the process often get what they want only to lose it quickly. They haven't used the gestation period to prepare themselves internally. They haven't developed the emotional maturity, the practical skills, or the nervous system regulation to sustain their manifestation. But people who learn to wait sacredly, who use the time between asking and receiving to grow and heal, find that when their manifestation arrives, it fits perfectly into their lives. They're ready for it. They can receive it fully and maintain it easily. Sacred waiting requires radical trust. Trust that there's a timing to things that's wiser than your personal preferences. Trust that what's meant for you will find you when you're truly ready. Trust that the delay isn't a denial, but a preparation. It also requires presence. Instead of constantly projecting into the future, wondering when your manifestation will arrive, you learn to find fulfillment in the current moment. You discover that life is happening now, not just when you get what you want. This is perhaps the most radical idea in this entire discussion. What if you don't need to wait until you get what you want to be happy? What if the joy, peace, and fulfillment you're seeking through your manifestation are actually available to you right now? This doesn't mean giving up on your desires. It means recognizing that your desires are meant to enhance an already fulfilling life, not to create fulfillment where none exists. When you learn to be genuinely happy and present during the waiting period, something miraculous happens. You stop emanating desperate energy and start radiating contentment. And contentment is magnetic in a way that desperation never can be. People are drawn to those who seem complete in themselves. Opportunities flow toward those who don't seem to need them desperately. Love finds those who are already loving their own lives. This is the art of sacred waiting. Learning to be so present, so content, so engaged with your current life that your manifestations arrive as beautiful additions rather than essential requirements. And when you master this art, you'll find that the waiting period becomes just as valuable as the receiving period, because you'll have learned something that no manifestation can teach you: how to be truly happy with what is, while still being open to what could be. Chapter 5. The Paradox of Detachment. Here's where most people get confused. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring without clinging. It means wanting without needing. It means holding your desires lightly rather than gripping them with white knuckles. The word detachment has gotten a bad reputation in spiritual circles because people think it means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally numb. But true detachment is actually the opposite. It's a state of such inner fullness that you can love freely without needing to possess or control. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He wrote about the importance of holding the tension between opposites, wanting and letting go, effort and surrender, attachment and detachment. He knew that most people swing between extremes instead of finding the balance point. Think about the most attractive person you know. Not physically attractive, but magnetically attractive. The kind of person others are naturally drawn to. What quality do they have? They're probably confident without being arrogant, interested without being needy, available without being desperate. They have a quality of self-possession that makes others want to be around them. This is what healthy detachment looks like. It's not indifference, it's the ability to engage fully while holding outcomes lightly. When you're properly detached from your manifestations, you can take inspired action without anxiety. You can pursue your goals without your happiness depending on achieving them. You can want things deeply while being genuinely okay if they don't happen exactly as you envision. This paradoxical state, caring deeply while holding lightly, is what makes someone truly magnetic. It broadcasts a message that says, "I'm whole within myself. I want to share my fullness with you, not use you to fill my emptiness." But how do you develop this quality of detachment without falling into indifference or resignation? It starts with understanding the difference between attachment and love. Attachment is about your needs. Love is about care and appreciation that doesn't require possession or control. When you're attached to someone, you need them to behave in certain ways to feel okay. When you love someone, you want the best for them, even if that doesn't include you. When you're attached to an outcome, your peace of mind depends on getting it. When you're detached, you can prefer one outcome while being genuinely open to what actually unfolds. This shift from attachment to love, from needing to preferring, creates a completely different energetic signature. Instead of the desperate, grasping energy of attachment, you radiate the attractive, magnetic energy of love. Detachment also requires developing what Jung called psychological security, a sense of your own worth and wholeness that doesn't depend on external validation or acquisition. Most people are attached to their desires because they believe getting what they want will finally make them feel complete, worthy, or enough. But if your sense of completeness depends on external conditions, you'll never truly feel secure because external conditions are always changing. True security comes from knowing that you're already whole, regardless of what you have or don't have. It comes from discovering that your essential worth isn't determined by your achievements, relationships, or possessions. When you genuinely feel complete within yourself, you can desire things as expressions of your fullness rather than attempts to fill your emptiness. You can pursue goals from inspiration rather than desperation. You can engage in relationships from love rather than neediness. This is the paradox of detachment. The less you need something, the more attractive you become to it. The less you cling to outcomes, the more easily they flow into your life. The more complete you feel within yourself, the more life seems to support and celebrate you. But developing true detachment takes time and practice. It's not something you can think your way into. It's something you grow into through repeated experiences of choosing presence over projection, trust over control, love over attachment. Every time you catch yourself desperately checking for signs of your manifestation, and instead choose to breathe and return to the present moment, you're developing detachment. Every time you notice yourself clinging to how things should unfold and instead open to how they actually are unfolding, you're practicing detachment. Every time you feel the urge to control someone or something and instead choose to focus on what you can actually control, your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, you're embodying detachment. It's a gradual process of learning to hold life lightly while engaging with it fully. And as you develop this capacity, you'll find that life becomes both more peaceful and more magical, more predictable in terms of your inner state, and more surprising in terms of what shows up externally. Because when you're truly detached, you become a clear channel for life to move through you in ways that your controlling mind could never orchestrate. Chapter 6. The Wisdom of Cycles. Life doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in cycles, seasons, spirals. There are times for planting and times for harvesting, times for action and times for rest, times for seeking and times for simply being. Most people trying to manifest are stuck in perpetual summer, always pushing, always growing, always trying to make things happen. They've forgotten that fallow periods are just as important as productive ones. In nature, nothing grows constantly. Even the most vigorous plants have periods of dormancy where all the growth happens underground, invisible to the external observer. These rest periods aren't failures. They're essential preparation for the next phase of growth. Your manifestations follow the same natural rhythms. There are times when you'll feel inspired to take action, when opportunities seem to appear everywhere, when progress feels rapid and visible. And there are times when everything seems to slow down, when nothing appears to be happening, when you question whether you're on the right path. Both phases are necessary. Both are productive in different ways. The action phases are when you plant seeds. You clarify your intentions, take concrete steps, make connections, and move things forward in the physical world. These periods often feel exciting and motivating because you can see tangible progress. The rest phases are when the real transformation happens, when your psyche integrates new patterns, when your nervous system adapts to new possibilities, when the universe rearranges circumstances behind the scenes to support your emergence. But because the rest phases don't produce visible results, most people panic during them. They think something's wrong. They start forcing, pushing, trying to make things happen. They abandon trust and return to control. This is like digging up seeds to check if they're growing. Not only does it not help, it actually damages the natural process. Carl Jung understood the importance of these fallow periods. He experienced many of them himself, times when he felt lost, uncertain, unproductive by conventional standards. But he learned to trust these periods as essential parts of his development. He called them incubation periods, times when the psyche is gestating something new, something that cannot be rushed or forced. During these periods, the best thing you can do is wait with awareness, stay present with what is, and trust the process. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means learning to distinguish between aligned action and forced action. Aligned action feels natural, even when it's challenging. It arises from inspiration, intuition, or clear next steps. Forced action feels desperate, frantic, like you're trying to make something happen through sheer will. During rest phases, aligned action might look like continuing to care for yourself, staying open to opportunities without desperately seeking them, or focusing on other areas of your life that are naturally flowing. Learning to work with natural cycles requires developing what I call cosmic patience, the ability to trust timing that's larger than your personal preferences. It means recognizing that your manifestations are part of a larger web of interconnected events and circumstances that you can't see or control. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually protection. The universe keeping something from you until you're truly ready. or until conditions align in a way that will best support you. Sometimes what feels like a setback is actually a redirection toward something better than what you originally imagined. Sometimes the no you receive is clearing the way for a yes that's more aligned with your highest good. But you can only see this perspective when you zoom out from your immediate wants and trust the larger intelligence that orchestrates all of life. This doesn't mean becoming resigned or passive. It means learning to dance with life rather than wrestling with it. It means recognizing when to push forward and when to allow, when to act and when to wait, when to hold on and when to let go. As you develop this sensitivity to natural rhythms, you'll find that your manifestations begin to unfold more organically. Instead of forcing things to happen on your timeline, you learn to recognize when conditions are ripe for action and when they're calling for patience. You stop trying to make every day summer and learn to appreciate the gifts of all seasons. You discover that the rest periods, rather than being obstacles to your manifestations, are actually essential preparations for receiving them. And you develop a trust in timing that allows you to stay peaceful and present, regardless of what phase you're in, knowing that everything has its season and that your season will come. Chapter 7. Becoming the person who already has it. The most powerful manifestation technique isn't visualization or affirmation. It's embodiment. It's literally becoming the person who already has what you want, not just in your imagination, but in your daily thoughts, feelings, and actions. This isn't about pretending or fake it till you make it positivity. It's about genuine transformation at the identity level. It's about asking yourself, who would I be if I already had what I want? And then beginning to embody those qualities now. Most people approach manifestation backwards. They think, when I get the relationship, then I'll feel loved. When I get the money, then I'll feel secure. When I get the recognition, then I'll feel worthy. But the universe operates on the principle of like attracts like. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you're operating from a place of feeling unloved, insecure, and unworthy, that's what you'll continue to create, regardless of what you're trying to manifest. The person who easily attracts love feels lovable now, not because their external circumstances prove it, but because they've done the internal work to recognize their inherent worth. The person who naturally attracts abundance feels abundant now, not because their bank account proves it, but because they've cultivated an internal sense of richness and gratitude. The person who effortlessly attracts success feels successful now, not because their achievements prove it, but because they've defined success in a way that allows them to feel it in the present moment. This is the difference between trying to get something and being someone. Getting is external and temporary. Being is internal and sustainable. When you're trying to get love, you operate from lack and neediness. When you are love, you naturally attract loving situations and people. When you're trying to get money, you operate from scarcity and grasping. When you embody abundance, you naturally attract abundant opportunities. When you're trying to get respect, you operate from insecurity and proving. When you respect yourself fully, others naturally respond with respect. But how do you make this shift from trying to get to learning to be. It starts with honest self-examination. What qualities would you have if you already had what you want? How would you think, feel, and act differently? If you had the loving relationship you desire, you'd probably feel more confident, more relaxed, more generous with others. You wouldn't be desperately scanning for signs of rejection or abandonment. You'd trust in your lovability and act from that place. If you had the financial security you want, you'd probably feel more peaceful, more generous, more willing to take creative risks. You wouldn't be constantly worried about money or trying to control every financial outcome. If you had the success you dream of, you'd probably feel more self-assured, more focused on contribution rather than recognition, more willing to be authentically yourself, rather than what you think others want. The key is to begin embodying these qualities now, before the external manifestation arrives. Not as a technique to get what you want, but as an expression of who you're choosing to become. This is deep identity work. It requires you to release limiting beliefs about yourself and step into a larger version of who you are. It requires you to act from your potential rather than your history. It's not always easy, because your ego will resist this expansion. It will tell you that you're being unrealistic, that you don't deserve to feel this good without external proof, that you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But every time you choose to embody the energy you want to experience, you're literally rewiring your nervous system and your energetic field. You're becoming magnetic to experiences that match your new way of being. This is why people who do deep inner work often find that their external circumstances begin to shift naturally, without force or desperation. They've changed at the causal level, the level of identity and energy. So their external world reorganizes to match. The universe doesn't care about your vision boards or affirmations. It responds to your authentic vibration, who you really are when nobody's watching, how you really feel about yourself and life when you're alone with your thoughts. When you genuinely become the person who already has what you want, when you embody those qualities as a way of being rather than a strategy for getting, you stop needing to manifest anything. You already are what you were seeking. And from that place of fullness, life begins to reflect your completeness back to you in ways that feel like magic, but are actually just the natural response of a universe that mirrors your inner state. Chapter 8. The Practice of Profound Acceptance. Before you can create anything new, you must first make peace with what is. This doesn't mean resignation or giving up on your dreams. It means accepting your current reality so completely that you stop wasting energy resisting it and can instead focus on consciously choosing what comes next. Most people are constantly at war with their present circumstances. They think acceptance means settling, so they resist what is in hopes of forcing what they want. But this resistance creates more of what they're trying to change. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. When you're fighting against your current reality, hating your job, resenting your relationship status, being angry about your financial situation, you're actually energizing those very conditions. You're focused on what's wrong, which keeps you vibrating at the frequency of what's wrong. But when you can genuinely accept what is, you free up enormous amounts of energy that were previously trapped in resistance. This energy then becomes available for creating something new. Acceptance doesn't mean liking everything about your current situation. It means acknowledging what is without the emotional charge of resistance. It means saying, "This is where I am right now, and that's okay." From this place of acceptance, I can consciously choose where to go next. This is radically different from the usual approach of trying to manifest from a place of rejection of current circumstances. Instead of, "I hate my life and need to change it," acceptance sounds like, "This is my life right now, and I'm grateful for everything that has brought me to this point. From this foundation, I'm excited to create something new." Can you feel the energetic difference between these two approaches? The first is contracted, desperate, fighting against reality. The second is expansive, peaceful, working with reality. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the importance of accepting what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves and our lives that we'd rather not acknowledge. He understood that trying to transcend or bypass these aspects only gives them more power over us. True transformation happens through integration, not elimination. You don't get rid of the parts of yourself or your life that you don't like. You accept them so fully that they no longer have power over you. When you accept your fear, it stops controlling you. When you accept your anger, it stops consuming you. When you accept your sadness, it stops defining you. And when you accept your current circumstances completely, they stop limiting you. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of conscious creation. The fastest way to change something is to first accept it exactly as it is. But acceptance can't be faked. You can't just think your way into acceptance or use acceptance as a strategy to get what you want. True acceptance is a surrender that happens in your body, in your nervous system, in the deepest parts of your being. It often involves grieving.